Arch, Sterling sat in his home office, staring at the blueprints spread across his custom-designed desk. The penthouse around him represented years of careful planning and success, each element chosen with precision, from the Italian marble countertops to the handcrafted furniture. But tonight, his mind wasn't on architecture. His wife Serafina's laughter drifted up from the kitchen below, accompanied by the soft murmur of her phone conversation. The sound made his jaw clench. 7 years of marriage had taught him to read the subtle shifts in her tone, and lately, something was off. "No, that timing works perfectly," Sarah's voice carried upstairs. "The new exhibition needs special attention. You understand how these things go." Arch's fingers tightened around his pencil. Another late night at the gallery. The third this week. He'd built his architectural empire by noticing details others missed, and these details weren't adding up. His friend Marcus dropped by later that evening, finding Arch in his usual spot. The lawyer's presence filled the room with an air of controlled authority that matched Arch's own. "You're brooding again," Marcus observed, settling into the leather chair across from Arch's desk. "Talk to me." Arch pushed aside his blueprints. Something's changed with Sarah. The late nights, the secret phone calls, the way she... He paused, choosing his words carefully. "She's different." "Different how?" Marcus leaned forward, his legal mind already at work. "She's distracted, distant. When she comes home from these endless gallery events, she barely looks at me. And her phone," Arch's voice hardened. "She guards it like it contains state secrets." Marcus studied his friend's face. "Have you checked her phone?" "I'm not some insecure teenager, Marcus. No, you're a man whose wife is acting suspicious. There's a difference." Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of heels on the stairs. Sarah appeared in the doorway, dressed in an elegant black dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. "Marcus, I didn't know you were here." Her smile was perfect, practiced. "I'm heading out to a gallery opening. Don't wait up, darling." After she left, Marcus turned back to Arch. "You built this life brick by brick. You have a right to protect it." That night, after Sarah texted that she'd be working late again, Arch made his move. Her phone lay forgotten on their bedroom dresser, a rare oversight. The message notification glowed like a beacon. From GC, "Miss you already. Can't wait for tomorrow." The words burned into his retinas. Below it, a thread of messages stretched back weeks. Flirtatious exchanges, hidden meanings, inside jokes he wasn't part of. Each message was a knife twisting in his gut. Arch didn't slam the phone down. He didn't shout or break things. Instead, he sat at his desk and opened his laptop. With the same meticulous attention he gave to his architectural projects, he began to document everything. Dates, times, suspicious calls, unexplained absences. His investigation expanded. Social media posts were archived, credit card statements analyzed, gallery event schedules cross-referenced. He created a digital paper trail that would make a forensic accountant proud. A week later, Marcus found him surrounded by printouts and digital records. "You found something?" Marcus stated, taking in the organized chaos of Arch's investigation. "More than something." Arch's voice was cold. "I've been tracking her movements, her spending patterns. There's a recurring character in this story, someone who signs their messages as GC. You need more than just initials." "I know." Arch pulled up a spreadsheet. "That's why I hired a private investigator. He's been following her for the past 3 days." Marcus whistled low. "You don't mess around. When someone betrays me?" Arch's eyes were steel. "No, I don't mess around." The PI's initial report arrived the next day. Photos showed Sarah entering various locations, not all of them galleries. Several captured her with a well-dressed man, their body language speaking volumes. Gabriel Caldwell, Arch read from the report, successful businessman, known for aggressive takeovers and questionable ethics. Married to Eleanor Caldwell, a corporate lawyer. "What's your next move?" Marcus asked. Arch's expression was unreadable. "I'm going to give them enough rope to hang themselves. Let them think they're clever, that they're getting away with it. Meanwhile, I'll build my case. When I move, it'll be decisive. They won't know what hit them." Marcus nodded, recognizing the cold calculation in his friend's eyes. "No," Arch agreed, his voice carrying the finality of a judge's gavel. They won't. The following weeks became an exercise in control. Arch maintained a facade of normalcy while gathering evidence. He noted Sarah's increasing boldness, the late nights becoming more frequent, the lies more elaborate. She thought she was being subtle. She didn't realize she was providing ammunition for her own destruction. One evening, she breezed in late, her perfume mixing with another sin Arch didn't recognize. The Zhao exhibition was amazing, she gushed, dropping her keys in the crystal bowl by the door. You should have been there. The Zhao exhibition ended last week, Arch replied calmly, not looking up from his laptop. I drove past the gallery today. A moment of silence followed. Sarah recovered quickly, but Arch had caught the flash of panic in her eyes. Oh, I meant the new installation. Different gallery. Of course, he said smoothly, making another note in his growing file. How forgetful of me. Later that night, Marcus called. How are you holding up? I'm not holding up, Arch replied. I'm building up. There's a difference. Just don't let this consume you. It's not consuming me, Marcus. It's focusing me. They think they're writing the story, but they don't realize I'm the architect of their downfall. And I never leave a project unfinished. The evidence mounted. Bank statements revealed suspicious transfers. Gallery receipts showed events that never happened. Phone records painted a picture of constant communication with Gabriel Caldwell. Arch documented it all. Each piece of evidence was a brick in the wall he was building, not to protect himself, but to entomb those who had betrayed him. You're sure about this path? Marcus asked during one of their evening discussions. Once you start, there's no going back. Arch looked out over the city lights, his reflection in the window as hard as granite. They made their choice when they decided to betray me. Now I'm making mine. And unlike them, I don't make mistakes. The next morning, a silver-embossed envelope arrived in the mail. Arch opened it with steady hands, already knowing what he would find inside. The baby shower invitation was elegant, expensive, just like everything else in Sarah's carefully curated life. He placed it on his desk, alongside the mounting evidence of her deception. Another piece in the puzzle, another nail in their coffin. Let them think they had the upper hand. Let them believe their little drama would play out according to their script. They had no idea that the real show was just beginning. Chapter 2. The Invitation and the Ultimatum. The baby shower invitation lay on Arch's desk like a loaded gun. The silver embossing caught the light, mocking him with its elegance. His fingers traced the raised letters announcing the impending arrival of Sarah's child, a child that couldn't possibly be his. The timing aligned perfectly with his investigation. Sarah's increased secrecy, her sudden work commitments, the mysterious meetings with Gabriel Caldwell. It all led to this moment. A child conceived in betrayal, announced with the audacity of innocence. Arch hadn't been sleeping. Dark circles rimmed his eyes, but his mind remained razor-sharp. He reviewed his notes again, each entry a testament to their deception. The patterns were clear now. Sarah's meetings with GC coincided with her claims of gallery events. Her phone records showed hours of conversations during times she claimed to be in meetings. His phone buzzed, Marcus calling. They're getting bold, Arch said without preamble. The invitation arrived? At Aurelia. Arch's laugh was hollow. They're not even trying to hide anymore. It's a power play. Marcus's voice crackled through the speaker. They want to humiliate you publicly. They think they're writing the script. Arch's voice carried no emotion. Let them believe that. What's your plan? I'll attend. Arch sorted through his investigation files. Play the part of the supportive husband. Meanwhile, my PI has been tracking their financial connections. Gabriel's been funding more than just art exhibitions. Marcus whistled low. You've been busy. You don't build an empire by being lazy, Marcus. When someone tries to tear it down, you don't just defend. You counterattack. The days leading up to the shower became a masterclass in deception. Arch maintained his routine, showing no sign of the storm brewing beneath his calm exterior. He watched Sarah flutter about their penthouse, planning her celebration, her excitement like poison in the air. You'll be there, won't you? She asked one morning, her voice dripping with false sweetness. It would mean so much to me. Arch looked up from his newspaper, his face a mask of neutrality. Of course, I wouldn't miss it. Her smile faltered slightly at his calm acceptance. She'd expected resistance, anger perhaps. His compliance seemed to unsettle her more than any confrontation would have. The morning of the shower, Arch dressed with particular care. His tailored suit was an armor of sophistication, each crease perfect, each button a statement of control. He arrived at Aurelia precisely on time, stepping into the restaurant's opulent interior. The scene that greeted him was a study in calculated insult. Pastels and flowers dominated the space, creating a feminine paradise that left no room for his masculine presence. Sarah held court in the center, radiant in a custom gown that highlighted her condition. Arch. Her voice carried across the room, drawing all eyes to him. I wasn't sure you'd come. He moved through the crowd with measured steps. I said I would be here. Gabriel Caldwell materialized at Sarah's side, his hand possessively on her lower back. His smile was all teeth and triumph. Sterling, bit out of place here, aren't you? Gabriel. Arch's voice could have frozen champagne. Interesting to see you so involved in my wife's celebration. The tension crackled between them. Sarah's smile became fixed, her eyes darting between the two men. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable elsewhere, she suggested, her voice tight. The pub across the street might be more your style. Gabriel's laugh was sharp. Yes, why don't you try that? After all, I'm the father here. You're just extra decoration. The room seemed to hold its breath. Guests pretended to be absorbed in their conversations, but their attention was fixed on the drama unfolding before them. Arch's smile was terrifying in its calmness. You might be right. His eyes met Sarah's, then Gabriel's. I'll leave you to your celebration. He turned and walked out, his steps unhurried, dignified. Behind him, he heard the murmur of conversation resume, punctuated by nervous laughter. Let them think they'd won this round. Let them bask in their moment of triumph. They had no idea that across the street, in the grimy interior of the Rusty Anchor, another player was about to enter the game. Eleanor Caldwell, Gabriel's wife, was waiting. Her presence would turn their little victory party into the beginning of their nightmare. Arch's phone buzzed as he descended Aurelia's steps. A message from his PI. Financial records secured. Connection confirmed between Caldwell Corp. And Sterling Gallery purchases. Evidence of fund misappropriation found. Another piece of the puzzle clicked into place. Arch allowed himself a small smile as he headed toward the Rusty Anchor. The real celebration was about to begin. Chapter 3. The Gathering Storm. The Rusty Anchor's neon sign buzzed overhead as Arch approached. The contrast between this establishment and Aurelia's refined atmosphere couldn't have been more stark. But it was here, in this dimly lit dive bar, that the next phase of his plan would unfold. Eleanor Caldwell sat at a corner booth, her designer suit incongruous against the worn leather seating. Her presence commanded attention despite her attempt to blend in. She looked up as Arch approached, her eyes sharp with intelligence and barely contained fury. Mr. Sterling, she greeted him, gesturing to the seat across from her. Right on time. Mrs. Caldwell. Arch slid into the booth. I trust Silas's report was illuminating? Illuminating? She pulled out a tablet, her manicured nails tapping the screen. That's one word for it. Your PI has been thorough. Silas, the private investigator Arch had hired, had compiled a damning dossier on Gabriel and Sarah's affair. Bank records, surveillance photos, text messages, a digital trail of betrayal that led straight to Aurelia's elegant baby shower across the street. Gabriel's been sloppy, Eleanor continued, her voice hard, using company funds to finance his affair. The board won't be pleased. And Sarah's gallery? Arch prompted. Artificially inflated sales, suspicious art authentications. Eleanor's smile was razor-sharp. Your wife's reputation in the art world is built on sand. Mr. Sterling, their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Marcus, who slipped into the booth beside Arch. The lawyer's presence completed their unlikely alliance. The papers are ready, Marcus announced, placing a leather briefcase on the table. Everything's in order for when we move. Eleanor leaned forward. How do you want to play this? Patience, Arch replied, his voice calm but carrying an undercurrent of steel. Let them enjoy their moment. The higher they climb, the harder they'll fall. The bar's doors swung open, letting in a burst of afternoon light. Gabriel and Sarah stood frozen in the doorway, their expressions shifting from triumph to shock as they spotted the gathering in the corner booth. Well, Eleanor's voice cut through the silence. What a delightful surprise. Come to celebrate, darling? Gabriel's face reddened. Ellie, what are you doing in this establishment? She gestured around the bar. Just having a fascinating discussion about corporate finance and art authentication. Care to join us? Sarah's hand went to her throat, her fingers clutching at her expensive necklace. Arch, I can explain. No need. Arch's voice was terrifyingly gentle. You've explained enough through your actions. The tension in the bar was palpable. Other patrons sensed the brewing storm and quickly made themselves scarce. You think you can threaten me? Gabriel's swagger returned, though his eyes betrayed his unease. I own half this city. Correction, Eleanor interjected. You manage half this city. Ownership is a more complex matter. Marcus opened his briefcase, removing a thick folder. Speaking of ownership, I have some interesting documents regarding recent financial transactions between Caldwell Corp and certain art galleries. Sarah's face had lost all color. You've been investigating us? No, my dear, Arch replied, his calm demeanor more frightening than any display of anger. I've been documenting your choices. There's a difference. This is harassment, Gabriel blustered, but his confidence was cracking. Eleanor's laugh was cold. Harassment? No, Gabriel. This is consequences. You can't prove anything. Sarah's voice shook slightly. Arch stood slowly, his height allowing him to look down at both of them. I don't need to prove anything yet. But when I do... He let the sentence hang. We should get back to your shower. Gabriel grabbed Sarah's arm, pulling her toward the door. This is ridiculous. As they retreated, Eleanor raised her glass in a mock toast. Enjoy the celebration. It might be your last for a while. After they left, Marcus turned to Arch. That went well. It's just the beginning, Arch replied, watching through the window as Gabriel and Sarah hurried back to Aurelia. They think they can brush this off as a minor inconvenience. Your PI has more? Eleanor asked, pulling out her phone. Silas has been earning his fee. Arch gestured to Marcus, who pulled out another file. He's tracked their meetings back months. Hotel receipts, restaurant bills, gallery donations that went straight into private accounts. Marcus spread the documents across the table. The money trail is particularly interesting. Gabriel's been channeling company funds through the gallery's acquisitions, using my husband's company to finance their affair. Eleanor's lips curved in a predatory smile. How thoughtful of them to provide such clear evidence. Arch's phone buzzed with a message from Silas. Subjects returning to Aurelia. G showing signs of agitation. S making multiple calls. They're scrambling, Marcus observed, checking his own phone. My sources say Gabriel's already reaching out to his lawyers. Let them scramble. Arch's voice was cold with satisfaction. Everything's documented. Everything's in order. Silas has backup copies of all the evidence stored securely. Eleanor raised an eyebrow. You've thought of everything, haven't you? Architecture taught me one thing, Arch replied, gathering the documents. A strong foundation is essential for what's to come. The meeting continued as afternoon faded into evening. They refined their strategy, each playing to their strengths. Eleanor's legal expertise, Marcus's connections, Arch's meticulous planning, all coming together like a perfectly designed structure. I should head back, Eleanor finally said, standing. I have a board meeting tomorrow that just became much more interesting. As she left, Marcus turned to Arch. You're sure about this timeline? Once we start. They drew first blood. Arch interrupted, his voice hard. Now they'll learn what happens to people who betray me. Through the rusty anchor's grimy windows, they could see the baby shower winding down. Guests departing, valets bringing around expensive cars, Sarah and Gabriel standing close, too close, as they said their goodbyes. Look at them, Marcus said quietly. They really think they've won. Arch's smile was chilling. Let them think that. Let them celebrate their victory. He picked up his phone, sending a brief message to Silas. While they're counting their wins, we'll be building their prison. The evening ended with Arch returning to his penthouse. Sarah wouldn't be home tonight, another gallery emergency requiring her attention. The space felt different now, each luxury item a reminder of the life they'd shared, the trust she'd broken. He went to his office, adding today's events to his growing file. Each document carefully labeled, each piece of evidence another nail in their coffin. The baby shower invitation sat on his desk, its silver embossing now tarnished with fingerprints. Marcus called one last time. "You going to be okay tonight?" "I'm not the one who needs to worry about being okay," Arch replied, his voice steady. "Everything's proceeding exactly as planned." After hanging up, he stood at his window, looking out over the city lights. The same city where, right now, Sarah and Gabriel thought they were celebrating their triumph. The same city that would soon witness their fall. The first act of their destruction was complete. The players were in place, the evidence secured, the alliances formed. Now it was just a matter of timing. And if there was one thing Arch Sterling understood perfectly, it was the importance of precise timing. He closed his laptop, straightened his files, and allowed himself a small smile. Let them have their night of celebration. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. Chapter 4. The Foundation of Retribution. The morning after the confrontation at the Rusty Anchor, Arch sat at his desk reviewing bank statements and property documents. His phone buzzed with a message from Eleanor Caldwell. "Meeting in 20 minutes. Bringing the paperwork." He didn't reply. Instead, he pulled up his personal banking app and began the systematic process of separating his finances from Sarah's. Joint accounts were drained, credit cards canceled, investment portfolios redistributed. Each action precise, each move calculated. Marcus arrived first, carrying a stack of legal documents. "You're really doing this." They made their choice. Arch didn't look up from his computer. Now they deal with the consequences. Eleanor swept in moments later, her briefcase bulging with files. "Gabriel's been busy," she announced, spreading documents across Arch's desk. "Look at these transactions." The papers revealed a web of financial entanglements between Gabriel's company and Sarah's gallery. Inflated purchases, mysterious consultancy fees, artwork bought at 10 times its market value. They weren't even trying to hide it, Marcus observed, examining a particularly damning transfer record. Because they thought they were untouchable. Arch's voice carried a note of cold satisfaction. "Gabriel's arrogance will be his undoing." Eleanor pulled out her tablet, bringing up more records. "I've been tracking his company's movements. He's been siphoning funds through shell corporations, using the gallery as a front." "Can you prove it?" Arch asked. "With the right pressure points." Eleanor's smile was sharp. "I've already spoken to some board members. They're concerned about recent management decisions." Arch nodded, pulling up his own files. "I've been documenting Sarah's activities. The authenticity certificates for several major pieces in her gallery are questionable at best." "Art fraud?" Marcus whistled. "That's career-ending in her world." "Precisely." Arch turned his laptop around, showing a spreadsheet of gallery transactions. "And when these numbers reach the right people..." The meeting continued for hours, each player contributing their expertise to the plan. Eleanor's legal knowledge, Marcus's connections, Arch's meticulous attention to detail, all coming together like a perfectly designed structure. Later that day, Arch received a call from Silas. "Mr. Sterling, you might want to see this." A series of photos appeared in Arch's email. They showed Sarah entering various high-end shops, Gabriel's corporate credit card in hand. The timestamps matched periods when she'd claimed to be at gallery events. "Keep tracking them," Arch instructed. "I want to know about anything unusual." That evening, he launched his architectural blog. The first post, a detailed analysis of structural integrity in modern design, went live under a pseudonym. He knew Sarah would recognize his writing style, his expertise. Let her see what she tried to destroy. The next morning, the first anonymous tip reached the financial press. A small story about questionable art valuations at a prominent gallery. Nothing direct, nothing traceable, but enough to plant the seed of doubt. Eleanor called shortly after the article appeared online. "It's starting. The board's asking questions." "Good." Arch pulled up another document. I have more ready to go. We release them gradually. Let the pressure build. Gabriel will fight back, she warned. Let him. Arch's voice held no concern. The harder he fights, the deeper he'll dig his own grave. The week progressed according to plan. Each day brought new revelations, new pressures. Arch watched from his office as Sarah's carefully constructed world began to crack. His phone lit up with a message from her. We need to talk. Please. He didn't respond. Instead, he forwarded the message to Silas, adding it to the growing documentation of their downfall. Marcus dropped by that evening, concern evident on his face. You're not worried about retaliation? They can't touch me. Arch gestured to his files. Everything I'm doing is legal, documented, protected. They're the ones breaking laws. And Sarah? She made her choice. Arch's voice was ice. Now she lives with it. The next phase of his plan unfolded smoothly. Anonymous tips continued to reach journalists. Whispers spread through the art world about questionable authentications. Gabriel's company stock began to fluctuate as rumors of financial irregularities grew. Eleanor provided regular updates on the board's increasing unease. They're starting to distance themselves from him. The smarter ones can see what's coming. Arch nodded, satisfied. He didn't need to swing the axe himself. He just needed to create the conditions for their own actions to destroy them. His blog gained traction in architectural circles. Each post showcased his expertise, his vision. He knew Sarah would recognize the underlying message. He couldn't be erased, couldn't be replaced. The pressure mounted steadily. Gabriel's company stock dropped further. Questions about artwork authenticity grew louder. Sarah's gallery clientele began to quietly distance themselves. You're not just breaking them, Marcus observed during one of their strategy sessions. You're dismantling everything they built. No. Arch's correction was calm but firm. I'm exposing what they really built. A house of cards based on lies and betrayal. Eleanor arrived with more documents. Gabriel's getting desperate. He's trying to move assets, shore up his position. Let him scramble. Arch reviewed the papers. Each move he makes just gives us more ammunition. The momentum built steadily. Each day brought new cracks in their facade. Arch watched it all with cold satisfaction, knowing the worst was yet to come. Chapter 5. The Structural Weakness. Gabriel's first attempt at retaliation came through intermediaries, subtle threats, veiled warnings about consequences. Arch collected each message, adding them to his growing file of evidence. Mr. Sterling. The voice on his office phone was smooth, professional. Mr. Caldwell would appreciate a moment of your time to discuss recent developments. Would he? Arch's response was equally polished. Tell him my lawyer handles all communication. The calls grew more frequent, more desperate. Gabriel's facade of control was cracking. His company's stock continued its downward spiral as more questions arose about financial irregularities. Eleanor provided regular updates from the corporate battlefield. He tried to call an emergency board meeting. It didn't go well. Details. 3 board members refused to attend. They're distancing themselves from potential liability. Her satisfaction was evident. The others are asking very uncomfortable questions about certain transactions. Arch nodded, making notes. And the art authentication inquiries? Gaining traction. 2 major collectors have requested independent verification of their purchases. The pressure was building exactly as planned. Each revelation spawned new investigations. Each question led to more uncomfortable discoveries. Sarah's attempts at contact grew more frantic. Texts, emails, messages left with his office. Arch, please. We need to talk about this. You're destroying everything we built. I know I hurt you, but this isn't the answer. He documented each message without response. Let her feel the weight of silence, the cold shoulder she turned on their marriage. Marcus arrived one afternoon, concern evident in his bearing. Gabriel's making moves. He's hired additional legal counsel. Expected. Arch pulled up a document on his computer. Look at this. The screen showed a complex web of financial transactions, all leading back to Sarah's gallery. He's trying to hide the money trail, but he's only making it worse. How so? Each attempt to conceal these transactions creates new documentation, new witnesses, new loose ends. Arch's satisfaction was evident. He's building our case for us. The next phase began with a series of anonymous tips to regulatory authorities. Nothing direct, nothing traceable, but enough to trigger official inquiries. Eleanor called with updates. The SEC is asking questions. Informal inquiries at this point, but enough to make the board nervous, Arch finished. Very. 3 more members have recused themselves from major decisions. Gabriel's response was predictable. He began throwing money at the problem. High-priced lawyers, PR firms, crisis management experts. Each move depleted his resources further, exactly as planned. Sarah's gallery faced its own crisis. Whispers about fraudulent authentications grew louder. Clients began demanding proof of provenance for their purchases. They're running scared, Marcus observed during one of their strategy sessions. Good. Arch reviewed the latest reports from Silas. Fear makes people sloppy. The PI's surveillance continued to yield results. Photos of secret meetings, records of panicked phone calls, evidence of increasingly desperate attempts to contain the damage. Sarah made one last attempt at personal contact, appearing at his office unannounced. The security footage showed her being politely but firmly turned away. You can't ignore me forever. Her voice carried through the lobby. I'm still your wife. Arch watched the feed from his office, unmoved. The cameras captured her eventual departure. Mascara streaked down her face. Putting on quite a show, Marcus commented, reviewing the footage later. She always did have a flair for drama. Arch's voice held no emotion. Add it to the file. The pressure continued to mount. Gabriel's attempts at intimidation grew more desperate. Anonymous calls, veiled threats, even an attempted break-in at Arch's office that security quickly handled. He's unraveling, Eleanor reported during their next meeting. The board is considering a vote of no confidence. Arch nodded, satisfied. And the regulatory investigation? Gaining momentum. They've requested documents going back 5 years. The next phase of their plan unfolded. More leaks reached the media, each one carefully timed and untraceable. Stories about questionable art deals, inflated valuations, suspicious financial transactions. Sarah's gallery clients began pulling out. Major collectors demanded refunds, authentication reviews, legal assurances. Her reputation in the art world, built over years of careful networking, crumbled piece by piece. Chapter 6. The Unseen Hand. Eleanor proved to be more than just an ally. Her legal expertise, combined with her intimate knowledge of Gabriel's business practices, made her invaluable. The board meeting was chaos, she reported one evening. 3 more directors resigned. The stock's in free fall. Arch reviewed the financial reports on his screen. How's Gabriel taking it? Not well. He tried to blame the CFO, but the documentation we leaked proves otherwise. Their partnership was purely strategic, both of them clear-eyed about their motivations. They met regularly, usually in Arch's office, plotting their next moves. Marcus sometimes joined these sessions, bringing his own legal insights. The regulatory investigation is expanding. They're looking into the overseas accounts. Exactly where we want them looking, Eleanor smiled. That's where Gabriel got sloppy. The trap was set with meticulous care. Using Silas's connections, they arranged for certain information to reach Gabriel through back channels, hints of a potential financial lifeline, a way to recoup his mounting losses. He'll take the bait, Arch predicted. His ego won't let him do otherwise. The bait was irresistible. A series of seemingly legitimate transactions that would appear to shore up his crumbling finances. In reality, each move would only dig him deeper. Silas's surveillance continued to prove invaluable. His network tracked Gabriel's increasingly erratic movements, documented his desperate meetings with questionable characters. He's meeting with people he shouldn't, Silas reported. Making deals he can't back out of. Arch added the information to his growing files. Each piece of evidence was another nail in their coffin. Each documented meeting another link in the chain they were forging. Their plan faced its first real challenge when Gabriel hired a hacker to probe Arch's digital defenses. The attempt was clumsy, easily detected and blocked. Amateur move, Marcus commented when they reviewed the security locks. He's getting desperate. Good. Arch's satisfaction was evident. Desperate people make mistakes. The next phase required careful timing. Eleanor used her legal connections to begin freezing Gabriel's assets, while Marcus prepared the groundwork for multiple lawsuits. The civil suits alone will tie him up for years, Marcus explained, spreading documents across Arch's desk. And once the criminal investigations start, their strategy sessions became more frequent as the pressure mounted. Eleanor brought reports of Gabriel's increasingly erratic behavior at board meetings. Marcus tracked the growing legal challenges. Silas documented the late-night meetings, the suspicious transfers, the mounting evidence of desperation. We're not just breaking them, Eleanor observed during one session. We're making them break themselves. Arch nodded, reviewing the latest surveillance photos. Each showed Gabriel or Sarah, their polished facades cracking, their carefully constructed world falling apart. The trap was nearly ready. Using carefully crafted leaks and anonymous tips, they created a trail of breadcrumbs leading to a seemingly legitimate but ultimately devastating financial opportunity. He'll see it as a lifeline, Eleanor predicted. His ego won't let him question it too closely. And when he takes the bait? Marcus asked. Then we have him. Arch's voice held no emotion. Complete and final. The pieces were in place. The pressure was mounting. Gabriel's company teetered on the brink of collapse. Sarah's gallery faced multiple investigations, and their reputations lay in ruins. Arch watched it all unfold from his office, each development tracked, each reaction documented. This wasn't just revenge. It was architecture of a different sort, designing and executing the perfect collapse of their carefully constructed world. Their regular strategy sessions now focused on timing. The trap needed to spring at precisely the right moment, when Gabriel was at his most desperate and vulnerable. The regulatory agencies are closing in, Marcus reported. He's running out of options, and running out of friends, Eleanor added. The board's preparing for a formal vote of no confidence. Arch reviewed their documentation one final time. Everything was in place, each piece of evidence carefully preserved, each move documented and ready. The dark web trail had been laid, thanks to Silas's connections. The false transaction would appear legitimate enough to tempt Gabriel, but toxic enough to destroy him completely. He's looking for any way out, Silas reported. My sources say he's contacting some very dangerous people. Perfect. Arch's satisfaction was evident. Let him dig his own grave. The final pieces were in motion. Their months of careful planning, of pressure and manipulation, had brought them to this point. Gabriel was cornered, desperate, ready to grasp at any chance of salvation. Arch sat in his office, reviewing the surveillance footage one last time. On his screen, Gabriel and Sarah's world crumbled in real time, their desperate attempts to save themselves only hastening their destruction. The trap was set. The players were in position. All that remained was to watch their targets take the final, fatal step toward their own destruction. Chapter 7. The Final Act. The trap snapped shut. Gabriel Caldwell, desperate to salvage his crumbling empire, had taken the bait Arch and his team had so carefully laid. The fake transaction scheme, planted through Silas's dark web connections, proved irresistible to a man watching his wealth evaporate. He's moving the money now, Silas reported via secure line. Multiple transactions, exactly as we predicted. Arch sat at his desk, watching the pieces fall into place. Send the signal. Within hours, federal agents swarmed Caldwell Corp's headquarters. The sight of Gabriel being led out in handcuffs made headlines across all major networks. The charges were devastating. Money laundering, fraud, embezzlement, each count meticulously documented. Eleanor called minutes after the arrest. The boards called an emergency meeting. It's over for him. Details. They're invoking the moral turpitude clause in his contract. He's out, effective immediately. Her satisfaction was palpable. The SEC is freezing all company assets pending investigation. Arch turned to his computer, pulling up surveillance feeds. Cameras showed Sarah arriving at the police station, her designer outfit incongruous in the harsh fluorescent lighting. She stood at the desk, gesturing frantically, But no amount of charm or connections could help Gabriel now. Marcus arrived at Arch's office, legal documents in hand. The prosecutors are building their case. With the evidence we've provided, he's looking at 15 years minimum. And Sarah's gallery? The Art Authentication Board just announced a full investigation. 3 major pieces have already been confirmed as forgeries. The news coverage was relentless. Each hour brought new revelations, new accusations. Gabriel's business empire crumbled in real time as investors fled and partners distanced themselves. Silas's surveillance captured Sarah's desperate attempts to access their frozen accounts, her increasingly frantic visits to former friends and associates. Each door closed in her face, each call went unanswered. She tried to access your old penthouse, Silas reported. Security turned her away. Arch nodded, unsurprised. And Gabriel's legal team? Dropping him one by one. The evidence is too damning, and no one wants to be associated with this scandal. The investigation expanded rapidly. Federal agents discovered more irregularities, more fraudulent dealings. Gabriel's supposedly legitimate business empire revealed itself as a house of cards. Eleanor orchestrated the corporate aftermath with cold efficiency. The board's cooperating fully with investigators. They're desperate to save themselves. And the shareholders? Filing class action lawsuits. The stock's worthless now. Arch watched the destruction unfold with detached satisfaction. The plan he'd architected executed flawlessly, each component performing exactly as designed. Sarah made one final attempt at damage control, calling a press conference to protest her innocence. The reporters were merciless, armed with evidence Arch had carefully leaked over months. Mrs. Sterling, how do you respond to allegations of systematic art fraud? Can you explain the source of funding for these authenticated pieces? What is your relationship with Gabriel Caldwell? She fled the podium in tears, her carefully constructed facade finally shattering completely. Marcus brought more news that evening. The DA's office is expanding the investigation to include the gallery. They're treating it as a money laundering operation. Good. Arch reviewed the latest reports. And the Art Authentication Board? Preparing to revoke her certifications. She'll never work in the industry again. The media coverage continued unabated. Stories detailed Gabriel's arrest, the company's collapse, the mounting evidence of years of financial manipulation. Sarah's involvement became a focal point, her gallery exposed as a front for laundering money and selling forged artwork. Eleanor called with updates from the corporate front. The boards authorized a complete audit. They're finding transactions dating back years, all documented in our files, Arch noted. Which makes the prosecutors very happy. Gabriel's attempt at bail was denied. The evidence of flight risk, presented by prosecutors armed with information from Arch's files, was overwhelming. Sarah's gallery closed its doors permanently, a notice of investigation posted on its elegant facade. Her clients, once eager to associate with her sophisticated image, now demanded criminal investigations into their purchases. The destruction Arch had orchestrated was complete. The careful plans laid over months had culminated in total devastation of their lives, careers, and reputations. Chapter 8. The Price of Betrayal. The legal proceedings moved with inexorable force. Eleanor, representing herself in the divorce proceedings, presented a devastating case against Gabriel. The court finds the defendant's actions constitute gross misconduct, the judge declared. All assets are to be frozen pending criminal proceedings. Gabriel sat in prison garb, his usual confidence shattered. His eyes darted between his estranged wife and his former mistress, finding no sympathy in either face. Sarah's own legal troubles mounted. The Art Authentication Board's investigation revealed systemic fraud, each discovery adding new charges to her growing list of crimes. They found forgeries going back 3 years, Marcus reported during a strategy session. Major collectors are filing lawsuits. Arch reviewed the documentation. The evidence they'd gathered painted a clear picture of deliberate, sustained fraud. The courtroom became a battleground where Arch's revenge played out in public record. Each hearing brought new revelations, new charges, new depths of their deception. Sarah's attempts at defense crumbled under the weight of evidence. Her lawyer, faced with irrefutable proof of her crimes, advised her to plead guilty. The prosecution has offered a deal. Marcus informed Arch she's looking at substantial fines and possible jail time. No deals, Arch replied coldly. Let her face trial. The proceedings continued. Day after day, the court heard testimony about forged artwork, laundered money, fraudulent transactions. Each witness added another nail to their coffins. Eleanor's divorce proceedings moved in parallel, stripping Gabriel of everything he'd built. His attempts to hide assets failed as Arch's documented evidence revealed each secret account, each hidden transaction. The court awards all disputed assets to Mrs. Caldwell, the judge announced. Mr. Caldwell's actions demonstrate clear intent to defraud. Arch's own lawsuit for defamation and emotional distress proceeded with brutal efficiency. The evidence was overwhelming, the damages substantial. They never expected this level of documentation, Marcus observed during one session. Every move they made, every lie they told. It's all here. The financial penalties mounted. Fines, legal fees, civil judgments. Each decision stripped away another layer of their former wealth. Sarah's family, initially supportive, withdrew completely as the extent of her crimes became public. She found herself alone, her social circle evaporating as former friends distanced themselves from the scandal. The final hearings brought the full weight of justice to bear. Gabriel received a lengthy prison sentence, his crimes too numerous and well-documented to avoid. Sarah faced her own judgment, her elegant appearance unable to mask her desperation. The judge was unmoved by her tears, focusing instead on the systematic nature of her fraud. Arch attended each session, his presence a silent reminder of their betrayal. He watched without emotion as their sentences were handed down, their punishments enumerated. The courtroom victories provided official validation of what Arch had known all along. Their betrayal, documented and proven, now stood as public record. Chapter 9. The New Blueprint. The conclusion of the legal proceedings marked a transition for Arch. The mechanisms of revenge, so carefully constructed, had served their purpose. His architectural practice flourished, his designs drawing acclaim from industry experts. The precision he'd applied to destroying Sarah and Gabriel now focused on creating new works of significance. The Rivera project wants to move forward, his assistant reported one morning. They're impressed with the preliminary designs. Arch nodded, reviewing the blueprints. The work absorbed him now, each project a step toward a future unmarked by betrayal. Marcus visited regularly, their conversations turning from revenge to new opportunities. The Design Awards Committee called again. They're very interested in your latest work. The architectural blog, started as part of his revenge, had developed a significant following. Industry leaders sought his insights. Young architects studied his approaches. His new penthouse became a showcase of his vision, each element reflecting the clarity he'd gained through adversity. The space spoke of strength, of purpose, of moving forward. Professional success brought new connections, new possibilities. Speaking engagements, consulting offers, prestigious projects, each opportunity reinforced the rightness of his path. Eleanor maintained contact, their alliance evolving into professional respect. She'd rebuilt her own life, her legal practice thriving in the wake of their successful collaboration. The corporate world still whispers about Gabriel's downfall, she mentioned during one lunch meeting. It's become a cautionary tale. Arch's reputation in the architectural world grew stronger. His designs, always precise, now carried an additional edge of innovation that drew international attention. The city's skyline featured more of his works now. Each building stood as testament to his resilience, his ability to create beauty from destruction. News occasionally reached him of his former targets. Gabriel served his sentence in federal prison, his empire destroyed, his reputation ruined. Sarah struggled in obscurity, unable to rebuild in the wake of her exposed crimes. Their fate held no interest for him now. The revenge, executed, had served its purpose. His focus remained on the future, on the structures yet to be built. You've changed the firm's direction completely, Marcus observed during one evening discussion. These new designs are revolutionary. The observation rang true. The experience had transformed his work, adding layers of complexity and understanding to his architectural vision. Professional accolades accumulated. Awards, recognition, prestigious commissions, each achievement built upon the last, creating a new legacy. His final triumph came not in their destruction, but in his own renewal. The architect had rebuilt himself, creating a foundation stronger than before. The city spread before him, its lights marking possibilities rather than memories. He designed his revenge with the same precision he brought to his buildings, and like his best works, it would stand as testament to his mastery. Epilogue. 10 years later, the Sterling Architectural Group's new headquarters dominated the city skyline, its innovative design a testament to its creator's vision. Inside his top-floor office, Arthur Arch Sterling reviewed plans for his latest international project. At 52, he carried the same commanding presence that had defined him during his darkest days, though success had added an extra layer of authority to his bearing. The Dubai contract is finalized, his executive assistant announced, placing a thick folder on his desk. They're eager to begin construction. Arch nodded, examining the blueprints for what would become the world's most innovative sustainable building. His firm had grown exponentially over the past decade, with offices in major cities worldwide. The revenge that had once consumed him now seemed like a distant chapter in a much larger story. A notification popped up on his computer screen, a news alert he'd set up years ago. Gabriel Caldwell was being released from federal prison after serving 8 years of his 15-year sentence for good behavior. The article mentioned his exceptional compliance and reformed character. Marcus called about this, his assistant added. He thought you should know. Schedule lunch with him tomorrow, Arch replied, his voice neutral. The news stirred no emotion in him. Gabriel Caldwell's fate had ceased to interest him years ago. Marcus arrived at their usual restaurant the next day, now a senior partner at his law firm, but still carrying the same trustworthy demeanor that had helped Arch through his darkest times. Heard about Gabriel? Marcus asked as they settled into their private booth. Released early, Arch confirmed, studying the menu despite knowing it by heart. Irrelevant. Thought you'd say that. Marcus smiled. Eleanor called. She's handling some aspects of his release conditions through her firm. Eleanor Caldwell had transformed her experience with Gabriel into a specialized legal practice focusing on corporate fraud and divorce cases. Her firm had become the go-to choice for high-profile clients seeking justice against unfaithful spouses who also committed financial crimes. How is she? Thriving. She's speaking at a conference next month about detecting corporate fraud and divorce cases. Uses Gabriel as her prime example. Marcus paused. She's engaged, by the way. Some tech entrepreneur. Seems happy. Their conversation shifted to business. Marcus's firm handled much of Sterling Architectural Group's legal work, their professional relationship stronger than ever. The Shanghai project's environmental impact study came back clean, Marcus reported. We can move forward with the permits. Good. And the London expansion? Contracts are ready for review. Your new partners are impressed with the sustainability features. Arch's firm had pioneered eco-friendly architecture that didn't sacrifice aesthetic appeal. His designs were reshaping skylines across the globe, earning him acclaim and numerous awards. Later that week, Silas, still his most trusted investigator, sent his regular update. He'd maintained surveillance on key players over the years, more out of professional thoroughness than any remaining concern. Gabriel Caldwell had emerged from prison a broken man. His attempt to rebuild any semblance of his former life had failed consistently. No reputable firm would touch him, and his skills had grown outdated during his incarceration. He'd taken a job as a night manager at a small hotel in New Jersey, living in a modest apartment and driving a used car, a far cry from his days of corporate jets and luxury penthouses. Sarah Sterling, now using her maiden name Bennett, had faced her own struggles. After serving 18 months for art fraud and paying massive fines, she tried to reinvent herself in smaller cities, but her reputation followed her. The art world had blacklisted her completely. She now worked as a sales associate at a furniture store in Phoenix, her sophisticated taste in art reduced to helping customers coordinate living room sets. The child, a daughter, lived with her maternal grandparents in Connecticut. Sarah had lost custody rights during her legal troubles, and the girl had grown up barely knowing either biological parent. She was now in high school, excelling in academics and showing promise as an athlete. Arch closed Silas's report without emotion. Their fates were footnotes now, cautionary tales in a story that had propelled him to greater heights. His personal life had evolved as well. While he never remarried, he maintained a small circle of close friends and enjoyed a quiet relationship with Claire Anderson, a brilliant structural engineer who understood his dedication to his work. She had her own successful career and respected his boundaries, making their partnership work without the complications of his past. The Richardson Foundation called again, his assistant mentioned during their morning briefing. They want you to head their architectural scholarship program. The foundation specialized in helping talented students from disadvantaged backgrounds pursue careers in architecture. Arch had been quietly funding several scholarships through them for years. Set up a meeting for next week, he decided. It's time to expand the program. His philanthropy had grown alongside his success, though he kept it private. He funded arts education programs in public schools, seeing it as a way to ensure authentic talent had opportunities to flourish, unlike the fraud he'd exposed years ago. The weekend found him reviewing designs in his home office. His new penthouse, occupying the top 2 floors of one of his award-winning buildings, reflected the same principles that guided his professional work: clean lines, innovative use of space, and seamless integration of technology with classic elements. Claire worked nearby, going over structural calculations for their joint project in Singapore. Their professional collaboration had strengthened their personal relationship, each understanding the other's drive for excellence. The support system calculations look good, she mentioned, sliding over her tablet. This could revolutionize how we approach sustainable high-rises. Their discussion of technical details was interrupted by a call from Marcus. Thought you should know. Gabriel tried to contact Eleanor's firm. Wanted to make amends or some nonsense. Her partners shut it down immediately. Expected, Arch replied. He's trying to rebuild connections. Won't work. His name's toxic in the corporate world. Even his old Yale classmates won't touch him. After the call, Arch stood at his window, looking out over the city he'd helped shape. His buildings dotted the skyline, each one a testament to legitimate success built on genuine talent and hard work. The next morning brought news that the architectural world was buzzing about. The Sterling Architectural Group had been chosen to design a revolutionary complex of sustainable buildings in Singapore, beating out several renowned international firms. The project would set new standards for environmental architecture. The press wants interviews, his PR director informed him, especially about the innovative water recycling system. Arch agreed to a limited number of carefully selected media appearances. His reputation for architectural brilliance had long overshadowed the scandal of his past, but he maintained strict control over his public image. During one of these interviews, a young reporter tried to bring up the Caldwell scandal. Arch's response was characteristic of his evolved perspective. My work speaks for itself. The buildings we create, the lives we improve through sustainable design. That's what matters. The article focused on his architectural innovations instead. Eleanor invited him to dinner that month, wanting to introduce her fiancé. The restaurant was one of the city's finest, though notably not Aurelia, which had closed years ago. Life has a way of balancing accounts, she observed as they discussed their respective successes. We took their betrayal and built something better. Her fiancé, James Chun, ran a successful cybersecurity firm. He listened with interest as Eleanor and Arch discussed how they'd exposed corporate fraud on a massive scale. The techniques you developed, James noted, they're still studied in forensic accounting courses. The evening proved pleasant, highlighting how far they'd all come from those darker days. Arch's firm continued to grow. He opened new offices in emerging markets, always maintaining the exacting standards that had become his trademark. Young architects competed fiercely for positions, knowing that working for Sterling Architectural Group could make their careers. One morning, reviewing applications for his scholarship program, he paused at a familiar name. Gabriel and Sarah's daughter had applied, showing remarkable talent in architectural design. Her essay made no mention of her parents, listing only her grandparents as family. After careful consideration, Arch approved the scholarship. Talent deserved recognition, regardless of its source, and he'd long since moved past any desire for generational revenge. The girl's acceptance letter went out with all the others, her heritage neither an advantage nor a disadvantage. Merit alone would determine her path. Years of success had taught Arch that the best revenge wasn't in destroying others, but in building something so magnificent that the past became irrelevant. His buildings would stand for generations, while the scandal that had once threatened to define him had faded into obscurity. Marcus joined him for their regular lunch, now a tradition spanning over a decade. "Remember when we planned all this?" he asked, gesturing at the skyline visible through the restaurant's windows. "Did you imagine it would turn out like this?" "Better," Arch replied, his satisfaction evident. "We built something permanent." The truth of that statement was visible everywhere. While Gabriel and Sarah had constructed their lives on deception, Arch had created a legacy of innovation and excellence that would outlast them all. Claire called during lunch, excited about a breakthrough in their Singapore project. "The environmental impact calculations exceeded our best projections. We're not just meeting sustainability standards, we're setting new ones." Their personal and professional partnership had proven more rewarding than any of his previous relationships. They challenged each other, respected each other's independence, and shared a vision of creating meaningful change through their work. Silas's final report arrived later that week. He was retiring, passing his agency to a hand-picked successor. His last update noted that Gabriel had been declined for a bank loan to start a small business. Sarah had attempted to open an art consulting firm but found no clients willing to risk their reputations. Their daughter had accepted the Sterling Scholarship, unaware of its founder's connection to her parents' downfall. Arch archived the report and turned his attention to the future. His desk held plans for revolutionary projects across 3 continents. The Sterling Architectural Group had become synonymous with innovative, sustainable design. Professional journals regularly featured his work, and universities invited him to speak about the future of architecture. Looking out over the city he'd helped shape, Arch felt no need to dwell on the past. The betrayal that had once consumed him had become a footnote in a much larger story. He had built something far more valuable than revenge, a legacy that would inspire generations. The skyline before him told the real story. Each building represented a triumph of genuine talent over deception, of hard work over shortcuts. He had transformed personal pain into professional excellence, creating structures that would stand as monuments to the power of turning adversity into achievement. Claire joined him at the window, her presence a comfortable reminder of how life had improved. "The board approved the renewable energy implementation," she reported. "We're ready to revolutionize urban architecture again." Arch nodded, satisfied. The future stretched before them, full of possibilities that far outweighed the shadows of the past. He had not just survived betrayal. He had transcended it, building a life and legacy that stood as testimony to the power of genuine creation over destruction. The revenge that had once driven him had served its purpose, clearing the way for something far more significant. In the end, he had built not just buildings, but a future that stood as the ultimate victory over those who had tried to destroy him. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.